Shana Tova, Good Yantif, and Gemar Chatima Tova. May each of us find blessing and spiritual renewal on this Day of Atonement. As we prepare to begin our morning worship, we invite you to find that comfortable but not too comfortable seat, to settle in for a day of contemplation, prayer, words and melodies that will lift the soul.
We continue on page 173. Majestic God, today enthroned beyond time and space, eternally present, your name is hallowed on high. And the psalmist sang, "Rejoice in Adonai, you righteous, let the upright adorn you with praise." HaMelech Yoshev al kisei ram v'nisa, shochen ad marom v'kadosh shemo, v'chatuv ranenu tzadikim b'Adonai, la'yesharim navateilah.
Page 178. Praise to you, Adonai our God, whose power fills the cosmos, who opens for us the gates of compassion and lights up the eyes of those who await forgiveness. Shaper of light, source of the darkness, maker of peace, creator of all. Infinite light is preserved in life's treasure house. Lights from the darkness, said God. It was so. In love, you bring light to the earth and its creatures. Your goodness renews the creation each day. Infinite, varied, and rich are your works, divine artist, all of them wrought with wisdom. The whole earth is teeming with life. Awestruck by the universe, work of your hands, let all life bless you, praise you, and celebrate the beauty of your lights. May you shine a new light on Zion, and may we soon be privileged to share in that light. Baruch atah Adonai, Yotzer HaMeorot. Our praise to you, Adonai, creator of the cosmic lights. Page 183. All who are thirsty, come here for water. Drink deep of Torah, a fathomless well. Seas spread out to distant horizons. Torah encompasses all of the earth. Water revives and refreshes the body. Torah is potent, restoring the soul. Soil and pollution swept away in pure waters. Immersing in Torah, the spirit is cleansed. Earth's precious water, free and untrammeled, Torah is open and belongs to all people. Mighty waters pour down like thunder. Torah is shared in a rainbow of voices. Waters flow from the heights to the valleys. Torah will dwell in the humble of heart. Raindrops swell into powerful rivers. Begin in your learning, and wisdom will grow. Fountain of gardens, wellspring of fresh water, words of Torah bring life to the world. Our praise to you, Adonai. With love, you offer Israel the gift of Torah.
בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך וקשרתם לאות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים אני Elohechem, Adonai Elohechem emet.
We continue on page 195. And they shall know that I, Adonai, am their God, who brought them out of the land of Egypt, that I might abide among them. I, Adonai, their God. You took us out of the darkness so that your light might dwell among us. You showed us your power to bring down the powerful, uplift the enslaved, transform the social order. You showed us your strength so that we might remember our own. We carry the Exodus vision wherever we go, lest we forget our sense of liberation, lest we lose the joy at breathing free, lest we grow indifferent and blind to others' pain. So long as we work to make you present, we walk the path of freedom. But if we forget to bring you into the world, then we return to the darkness. Page 196.
מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש, נורא תהילות אוסף אלה, שירה חדשה שיבחו, גאולים לשמך על שפת הים, יחד כולם הודו והמליכו ואמרו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. צור ישראל, צור ישראל, קומה בעזרת ישראל, ופדי חינומך יהודה וישראל. גואלנו, גואלנו, אדוני צבאות שמו, קדוש ישראל. ברוך אתה אדוני, גאל ישראל.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei avoteinu ve'imoteinu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzchak ve'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka, Elohei Leah, Elohei Rachel,
להושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל אתה, רב להושיע, מוריד הטל. מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות ומי דומה לך, מלך מביט ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה. מי כמוך אל הרחמים, זוכר יצוריו לחיים ברחמים, לחיים ברחמים. ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל, ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיי הכל.
Page 209. Today we call it by its rightful name, a day of dread, Norah ve'ayom. Unwelcome visitor, for we want to live in a sunny world where God is love and all endings are happy. But the drumbeat sounds and the words tumble down, and even the angels tremble with fear. For all things are judged, and all things will pass, and life ends in a heartbeat, and death knows our name. At the start of the year, in the season of truth, comes the day of remembrance for all we forget and all we deny. And we fall on our knees in the depths of our hearts, for we know that the bell tolls for us. The words are old, and the language was theirs. But the call is real, and the message is ours. Take hold of your life while you still have the chance, for your story will end. And it might be this year in a way you don't know. Take hold of your life. Make things right while you can. Don't miss the call of the day of dread. Page 208.
נתנה תוקף קדושת היום, כי הוא נורא ואיום, ובוא תנשא מלכותך, ויקום בחסד כיסאך, ותשב עליו אמת, כי אתה הוא דיין ומוכיח ויודע אמת, כי אתה הוא דיין ומוכיח ויודע
ותזכור כל הנשכחות, ותצטרך את ספר הזיכרון, וחותם יד וחותם יד וחותם יד וחותם יד
Page 208. Let us proclaim the power of this day, a day whose holiness awakens deepest awe and inspires highest praise for your dominion. For your throne is a throne of love, your reign is a reign of truth. In truth, you are judge and plaintiff, counselor and witness. You inscribe and seal, you record and recount, you remember all that we have forgotten. And when you open the book of memories, it speaks for itself. For every human hand leaves its mark, an imprint like no other.
בראש
בראש השנה יכתבון, וביום צום כיפור ייחתמון. בראש השנה יכתבון, וביום צום כיפור, וביום צום כיפור
Page 212. On Rosh Hashanah, this is written. On the fast of Yom Kippur, this is sealed. How many will pass away from this world? How many will be born into it? Who will live and who will die? Who will reach the ripeness of age? Who will be taken before their time? Who by fire and who by water? Who by war and who by beast? Who by famine and who by drought? Who by earthquake and who by plague? Who by strangling and who by stoning? Who will rest and who will wander? Who will be tranquil and who will be troubled? Who will be calm and who tormented? Who will live in poverty and who in prosperity? Who will be humbled and who exalted? Utshuva, utfilah, utzedakah, ma'avirin et roa hagzerah. But through return to the right path, through prayer and righteous giving, we can transcend the harshness of the decree. You are everything that we praise you for, slow to anger, quick to forgive. You do not wish the death of sinners, but urge them to return from their ways and live. Until the day of death, you wait for them. You accept them at once if they return. Since you created us, you know our impulses. We are but flesh and blood. We who are mortal, our origin is dust, and so is our end. We wear out our lives to get our bread. Like broken vessels, like withered grass, like a flower that must fade, a shadow moving on, a cloud passing by, mere dust on the wind, a dream that flies away. But for you, ever-living sovereign, time has no limits. Your presence, unbounded by days and years, is everywhere. A glorious mystery none can decipher. Your name is worthy of you, and you are worthy of your name. And our name you have linked with yours.
נקדש את שמך בעולם, כשם שמקדישים אותו בשמי מרום, ככתוב על יד נביאך, וקרא זה אל זה ואמר, קדוש, 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 אדוני צבאות, מלוך הארץ כבודו. אדיר אדירנו, אדוני אדוננו, מה אדיר שמך בכל הארץ.
ברוך
אחד הוא אלוהינו, הוא אבינו, הוא מלכנו, הוא מושיענו, והוא ישמיענו, ברחמיו לעיני כל חי. אני אדוני
אחת שאלתי מאת אדוני, אחת שאלתי אותה אבקש, אחת שאלתי מאת אדוני, אחת שאלתי אותה אבקש.
שבתי שבתי בבית אדוני, שבתי שבתי כל ימי חיי, שבתי
אחת שאלתי מאת אדוני, אחת שאלתי אותה
לחסות בנועם אדוני,
בנועם אדוני,
לבקר בהיכלו,
בהיכלו לחסות
בנועם אדוני, to gaze upon the beauty of Adonai. One thing, I ask you, Adonai, to be with you all of my life. One thing, I ask you, Adonai, to be with you all of my life. One thing, I
Seder Kriyat Torah, our service for the reading of Torah, will begin on page 255 of our Yom Kippur Machzor, as you are invited now to rise as we give honor to the Torah.
Ein kamocha v'Elohim Adonai. Malechutecha malchut kol olamim וממשלתך בכל דור ודור.
אדוני מלך, אדוני מלך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. אדוני עוז לעמו ייתן. אדוני יברך את עמו בשלום. אדוני, אדוני, אל רחום וחנון, ערך אפיים ורב חסד ואמת, נוצר חסד לאלפים, נושא עוון ופשע, וחטא ונקה. שמע ישראל, אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני אחד אלוהינו, גדול אדוננו, קדוש ונורא שמו, גדלו לאדוני איתי, ולנרוממה שמו יחדיו. לך אדוני הגדולה והגבורה והתפארת והנצח וההוד, כי כל בשמיים ובארץ, כי כל בשמיים ובארץ, לך אדוני הממלכה והמתנשא לכל ראש.
We would not let these days of awe pass without acknowledging the consequential developments coming out of Israel in recent days. Of course, since we last gathered on Yom Kippur, so much has happened over there. In March, a third legislative election was held to elect members of the 23rd Knesset, including a prime minister, following two previous elections that failed to seat a government. This time, the vote resulted in a stalemate, with the two dominant parties, Netanyahu's Likud party and Benny Gantz's slightly more centrist blue and white party, forming a tenuous unity government. But with Gantz refusing to cooperate while Bibi remains under investigation for various bribery and corruption charges, a situation of deadlock persists. And then, of course, if you've been following the news, you know that Israel has been on its own roller coaster with the pandemic. At first, getting out in front of the surging public health crisis with strict measures to contain the spread, and then, following a robust attempt at reopening late last spring and into the early summer, Israel now contends with another serious outbreak of COVID-19, and our hearts are with our brothers and sisters. Atop all of that, we have the headline-making news of thawing relationships between Israel and two Arab Gulf states, the United Arab Emirates and Bahrain. Although covert cooperation between the Jewish state and these two Arab states, which are closely allied with Saudi Arabia, has been taking place for quite some time now, the open declaration of diplomatic relations, motivated in large measure by a shared intention to oppose the regionally hegemonic interests of Iran, are both newsworthy and noteworthy, and may well provide new and potentially productive avenues for revisiting both the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and the wider conflicts that have roiled the region for so long. But with all of these headline-grabbing stories, you may have missed an important development worthy of acknowledgement and indeed worthy of celebration in our synagogue settings on the holiest day of the year. Last year on Yom Kippur, I urged you to vote in the elections of the 38th World Zionist Congress, the international parliament of the Jewish people, the outcome of which directly affects how millions of Jewish agency and other social service dollars will be allocated every year for the next 10 years. And vote you did. WRT, you should be proud of your participation and of the outcome of the elections. Thanks to you and many others, a total of 123,575 votes were cast by American Jews from all 50 states, the District of Columbia, and United States territories. This is more than double the turnout of the prior vote in 2015 and the highest number of ballots cast in a United States World Zionist Congress election in 3 decades. And you should be especially proud that Vote Reform, our movement's platform, placed first out of 15 platforms in total and by a very comfortable margin by nearly 10,000 votes, with a total of 31,483 votes corresponding to 39 seats that will be allocated in the Congress, which will be convened next month via a global online platform because of the pandemic. And so it seems poetically appropriate to observe that this morning's Torah reading begins with a symmetrical image, a biblical Congress of the Jewish people, occupying every station and function of life in Israelite society, all convened by Moses in order to secure the future of the Jewish people in the land sworn on oath to their ancestors. May Israel and our people know only peace, prosperity, security, and health in the new year, together with all the righteous of every nation, and together we say, Amen. For the honor of the first Aliyah to the Torah, we call upon Josh Block, a trustee of our congregation, as well as our incoming investments chair and co-chair of our Inspired Giving campaign, and Andrew and Sarah Levine. Andrew is a current trustee of the congregation, Sarah a former trustee. Our reading can be found in your Yom Kippur Machzor, beginning on page 266.
Baruch Hu et Adonai Hamvorach, Baruch Adonai Hamvorach leolam va'ed, Baruch Ata Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, Asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, V'natan lanu et Torato, Baruch Ata Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Atem nitzavim hayom kulchem, לפני אדוני אלוהיכם, ראשיכם, שבטיכם, זקניכם ושוטריכם, כל איש ישראל, טפכם, נשיכם, וגרך, אשר בקרב מחניך, מחוטי ביצך, עד שואב מימך, לעוברך בברית, אדוני אלוהיך ובעלתו, אשר אדוני אלוהיך כורת עמך היום, למען הקים אותך, היום לא לעם, והוא יהיה לך לאלוהים כאשר דיבר לך, וכאשר נשבע לאבותיך, לאברהם, ליצחק וליעקב. ולא איתכם לברכם, אנוכי כורת את הברית הזאת ואת הלה הזאת, כי את אשר ישנו פה עמנו עומד היום לפני אדוני אלוהינו, ואת אשר איננו פה עמנו היום.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet, v'hayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
For the honor of the second Aliyah to the Torah, we call upon our congregant, Andy Rodman, who is our outgoing investments chair, and Scott Silberfein, who is secretary, officer of the Board of Trustees.
Baruch et Adonai Hambarah, Baruch Adonai Hambarah Beilam Va'ed, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bacha banu mikol hamim, v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Ki hamitzvah hazot asher anochi metzavecha hayom lo nifleti mimcha velo rechoka hi lo vashamayim hi lemor mi alelanu hashamayma vikache halanu viashmienu ota v'nasena ולא מעבר לים היא לאמור, מי יעבור לנו אל עבר הים ויקחה לנו, וישמיענו אותה ונעשנה. כי קרוב אליך הדבר מאוד, בפיך ובלבבך לעשותו. ראה נתתי לפניך היום את החיים ואת הטוב ואת המוות ואת הרע אשר אנוכי מצווך היום לאהבה את אדוני אלוהיך ללכת בדרכיו ולשמור מצוותיו וחוקותיו ומשפטיו, וחיית ורבית, וברכך אדוני אלוהיך בארץ, אשר אתה ושמה לרשתה. ואם יפנה לבבך ולא תשמע, ונידחת והשתחווית לאלוהים אחרים ועברתם, הגדתי לכם היום כי אבוד תאבדון, לא תאריכון ימים על האדמה, אשר אתה עובר את הירדן לבוא שמה לרשתה. הידותי בכם היום את השמיים ואת הארץ, החיים והמוות נתתי לפניך, הברכה והקללה, ובחרת בחיים למען תחיה אתה וזרעך. לאהבת אדוני אלוהיך, לשמוע בקולו לדבקו, כי הוא חייך ואורך ימיך, לשבת על האדמה, אשר נשבע אדוני לאבותיך, לאברהם, ליצחק וליעקב, לתת להם.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torat emet, v'chayei olam nata betochenu, Baruch atah Adonai, noten haTorah.
Our Torah scroll is sacred witness to the fact of Klal Yisrael, the unity of the Jewish people. We know that there has never been a time where we have been more disconnected, and yet at the same time, not just through the power of technology, but through the strength of Klal Yisrael, we are indeed together today. And by together, we of course include all of our loved ones who are in need of healing, those who are infirm, those who are lonely, those whose prayers are heard on high, and for whom we pray now with the words of Misha Berach. As our Torah scroll is raised and dressed, we invite you to rise.
וזאת התורה אשר שם משה לפני בני ישראל על פי אדוני ביד משה יאללה לה 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 יאללה לה 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 יאללה לה 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 יאללה לה לה יאללה לה לה יאללה לה 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 la 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 ya la ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 la.
This morning's Haftarah comes from the book of Isaiah and is a stirring call to repair the breach in society. For the honor of the blessing before the Haftarah, we will hear from our congregants, Jeff and Beth Gellis. Jeff is a trustee of the congregation, and Beth chaired our assistant cantor search committee this past spring. The Haftarah reading will be offered first by incredibly dedicated, caring volunteer Helene Getz, and then Steve Siegel, who is the volunteer coordinator of Torah study. And for the blessing after the Haftarah, we will hear from Barry and Joanne Citrin. Barry is a trustee of the congregation and outgoing president of our temple's men's club. Joanne has held pretty much every volunteer responsibility at the temple and now is a professional educator at WRT. The Haftarah reading begins on page 277.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar b'nvi'im tovim v'ratza v'divrahem hane'emarim be'emet. Baruch atah Adonai habocher b'Torah uv'Moshe avdo uv'Yisrael amo uv'invi'ei ha'emet v'ad tzedek.
Blessed are you, our God eternal, supreme power of the universe, who called forth noble prophets to speak the truth. Blessed are you, God of eternity, who delights in the Torah, in Moses, God's servant, in Israel, God's people, and in prophets of truth and right.
Cry from the depth, says God. Do not hold back. Lift up your voice like the shofar. Tell my people their transgression, and the house of Jacob their sin. Yes, they seek me daily, as though eager to learn my ways, as if they were a nation that does what is right and has not abandoned God's law. They ask me the right way, eager for God's nearness. They say, why did we fast and you do not see it? We afflict ourselves and you do not know it, because even on your fast day, you think only of desire while oppressing all who work for you, because your fasting is filled with strife, and with a callous fist you strike. No, your fasting day will not lift up your voice before heaven. Is this the fast I desire, a day to afflict body and soul? Bowing your head like a reed, covering yourself with the sackcloth and ashes. Do you call this a fast, a day worthy of the favor of Adonai? Is not this the fast I desire, to break the bonds of injustice and remove the heavy yoke, to let the oppressed go free and release all those enslaved? Is it not to share your bread with the hungry and to take the homeless poor into your home and never to neglect your own flesh and blood?
Then shall your light burst forth like the dawn, and your wounds shall quickly heal, your righteous one leading the way before you, the presence of Adonai guarding you from behind. Then when you call, Adonai will answer, and when you cry, will respond, I am here. If you remove the chains of oppression, the menacing hand, the malicious word, if you offer your compassion to the hungry and satisfy the suffering, then shall your light shine through the darkness, and your night become bright as noon. Adonai will guide you always, slake your thirst in parched places, give strength to your bones. You shall be like a well-watered garden, an unfailing spring. From you they will rebuild ancient ruins, lay foundations for ages to come, and you shall be called the one who mends the breach and brings back the streets for dwelling. If you cease to trample Shabbat, stop pursuing your affairs on my holy day. If you call Shabbat a delight, the holy day of Adonai honored. And if you honor God by not doing business or speaking of everyday matters, then shall you take pure delight in Adonai. I will lift up your journey on earth to the highest of places, and nourish you from the heritage of your father Jacob. For thus spoke Adonai.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, tzur kol ha'olamim, tzadik b'chol hadorot, ha'el ha'ne'aman, ha'omer ve'oseh, hamdaber umkayem, shekol devarav, emet v'tzedek.
Al ha'torah, ve'al ha'avodah, ve'al hanvi'im, ve'al yom ha'kippurim hazeh, shenatata lanu, Adonai Eloheinu, limchila ve'lislicha ulchapara, lechavod ultifaret.
Al hakol Adonai Eloheinu, anachnu modim lach, umvarchim otach, yitbarach shimcha b'fi kol chai, tamid le'olam va'ed, udvarcha emet v'kayam la'ad.
Baruch atah Adonai, melech mochel v'soleach, la'avonotenu v'la'avonot amo beit Yisrael, u'ma'avir ashmotenu b'chol shana v'shana, melech al kol haaretz, mikadesh Yisrael v'yom ha'kippurim.
We were saddened last week on Erev Rosh Hashanah to learn of the death of Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Since then, a touching audio file from 2013 has surfaced and quickly made its way around the internet of Justice Ginsburg at a family bar mitzvah offering the prayer for our country and its leaders. Today, her prayer is ours.
Our God and God of our forebears, we ask your blessing for our country, for its government, for its leaders, advisors, judges, and all who exercise just and rightful authority. Teach them insights from your Torah, that they may administer all affairs of state fairly, that peace and security, happiness and prosperity, justice and freedom may forever abide in our midst. Creator of all flesh, bless all the inhabitants of our country with your spirit. May citizens of all races and creeds forge a common bond in true harmony to banish hatred and bigotry and to safeguard the ideals and free institutions that are the pride and glory of our country. May this land under your providence be an influence for good throughout the world, promoting among all nations and people peace and freedom, helping them to fulfill the vision of your prophet. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they experience war anymore. And let us say, Amen.
Amen. This past December, I had the pleasure of traveling to Israel with 12 families from WRT, numbering some 60 people, grandparents, parents, and children all together. During our time there, 5 students in WRT's Jewish Learning Lab became bar or bat mitzvah in Israel. These families will now offer the prayer for the state of Israel. It can be found in the Rosh Hashanah prayer book on page 274, or in the Yom Kippur prayer book on page 288.
Avinu, you who are high above all nation states and peoples, Rock of Israel, the one who has saved us and preserved us in life.
Bless the state of Israel, first flower in our redemption. Be her loving shield, a shelter of lasting peace. Guide her leaders and advisors by your light of truth.
Instruct them with your good counsel. Strengthen the hands of those who build and protect our holy land. Deliver them from danger.
Crown their efforts with success. Grant peace to the land, lasting joy to all of her people, and together we say, Amen.
Eit chaim hi lamachas צדיקים בה ותומכיה מאושר דרכיה דרכי נועם וכל נתיבותיה שלום השיבנו אדוני אליך ונשובה חדש חדש ימינו חדש ימינו
Ki ya la 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 la. Rashanu,
Rashanu,
Shichatnu,
Shichatnu,
Tiavnu,
Tiavnu,
Tainu,
Tainu,
Titanu,
Titanu,
ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la.
Our service continues on page 299. For the sin we committed against you through evading and avoiding because we could not face the truth. For our flight into hypocrisy and deception because we did not dare to speak it. For the facts we dissembled and all we glossed over, for the excuses we made. For feeding our bodies and starving our souls. For interfering with the souls of others and neglecting their needs, for shifting our responsibilities, for reproaches and recriminations, for our foolishness, our folly, and false standards, for seeing these things only in others, never in ourselves, for our complacency, which blinds us, and our self-righteousness, which lessens us, for calculating kindness and measuring our pity, for charity that is cold and prayers without feeling, for withholding our love, for the appeals that we ignored and the people whom we refused, for the affection which died and our lives that became bitter, for the visions which faded, the ideals we neglected, and the opportunities we lost, for the fear of change and renewal and our unbelief, for saying prayers aloud but refusing to listen, for being our own worst enemy. Ve'al kulam Eloha slichot, slach lanu mechal lanu kaper lanu. For all these failures of judgment and will, God of forgiveness, forgive us, pardon us, lead us to atonement. We continue on page 307. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha, we confess our sins against the earth. We commit ourselves to saving it. We have assaulted our planet in countless ways. We have blamed others for the spiraling, deepening crisis. We have consumed thoughtlessly and irresponsibly. We have driven myriad species to the point of extinction. We've exhausted irreplaceable resources. We have failed to transcend borders and act unselfishly. We have given in to our many appetites and our gluttony. We have harmed beyond repair the habitats of living beings. We have ignored the signs of change in our climate and our seasons. We have jeopardized the well-being of future generations. We have known the problem but left problem-solving to others. We have lost sight of our role as God's partners in creation. We have mocked, cynically, those who love creatures great and small. We have neglected the environment, most of all in places of poverty. We have overpopulated our cities and overfished our oceans.
We have polluted seashore and sky, fertile soil and freshwater springs. We have questioned and doubted solid evidence of danger. We have ravaged the old-growth forests, ecosystems created over centuries. We have spewed poison into the bloodstream of our land, its rivers, lakes, and estuaries. We have transformed dazzling beauty into industrial ugliness. We have used shared resources for personal gain and corporate profit. We have violated the commandment, do not destroy. We have wasted precious treasures, our God-given gifts. We have exploited the weakness and most vulnerable in our midst. And yet we yearn to be better guardians of the earth and fullness thereof. Let us be zealous now to care for this unique corner of the cosmos, this planet, our sacred home. V'al kulam Eloha slichot, slach lanu mechal lanu, kaper lanu. For all these failures of judgment and will, God of forgiveness, forgive us, pardon us, lead us to atonement. Page 310.
Let me tell you about my brother Jacob. Though we share the same last name, we could not be more different. I am 47, he is 29, 18 years my junior. I live in the Northeast, he lives in the Midwest. I am named Moshe in Hebrew after my late grandfather, Morris Blake, Zichrono Livracha, may his memory be for a blessing. He is named for his late grandfather, the Reverend Jacob Blake Sr., a civil rights activist. I am a Jew. I don't know anything about my brother Jacob's religion, what God he prays to, what tribe he affiliates with. We do know that his outspoken father has a dismaying record of making outrageous anti-Semitic and anti-Christian statements and supporting the notorious anti-Semite Louis Farrakhan, Like I said, my brother and I could not be more different. I am white, and my brother is black. And right now, I am standing on my own 2 feet, while Jacob Blake is paralyzed from the waist down, having taken 7 bullets to the back in Kenosha, Wisconsin on August 23rd. Blake is, of course, only one in a long list of names of black men and women brutalized by law enforcement, a list that includes George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and Ahmaud Arbery and Daniel Prude and so many names before theirs. I come here today not to acquit or convict, although I would remind us that in America, as in Judaism, extrajudicial killings violate the law, even when a person is suspected of a crime. No, today I bring a different message, one for the day of reckoning, this day of Yom Kippur. There will be other days to talk about what's broken and needs mending in our politics, what's broken and needs mending in our system of policing, what's broken and needs mending in our public discourse. But today is Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement. So today I want to talk about what's broken in my heart, what needs mending in our humanity. Today I want to talk about brothers. Now, brothers are all over the Bible, and it would be an understatement to say that the business between and among biblical brothers can get complicated. Cain murders the first brother, Abel, in a frenzy of jealousy and then rages back at God, "Am I my brother's keeper?" A question that God never directly answers, but which echoes throughout the Torah down to the present day. Ishmael and Isaac, common sons of Abraham, live a life estranged. The bitter rivalry of fraternal twins Jacob and Esau occupies 10 full chapters in the book of Genesis. And what can we say about Joseph and his brothers that hasn't already been sung in an amazing Technicolor Broadway musical? And then there's the troubling fact that the Jewish tradition can't even agree on what the Torah means when it uses the word brother. Does it mean only a sibling, one who shares the same family unit? The book of Leviticus uses the word brother much more broadly. V'chi yamuch achicha u'matay yado imach v'hechezakta bo ger v'toshav v'chai imach. If your brother falls on hard times and is unable to support himself in your midst, you should support him as if he were a stranger or sojourner, and let him live among you. Al tikach me'ito neshech v'tarbit v'yareta me'elohecha v'cheachicha imach. Do not take any profit or interest from him, but rather act out of reverence for God and let him live by your side as your brother. Clearly, what's meant here is something more than a literal sibling. We're talking about a person in need, whom the Torah considers more like a resident alien who has become poor, requires assistance, and we are expected to do the right thing and treat another human being as part of the family. Along comes the book of Deuteronomy with a modified take on brother. The context in which the word appears is similar. We're still talking about the prohibition against lending at interest or financially exploiting the disadvantaged. Deuteronomy says, "Lo tashich leachicha neshech kesef neshech ochel, neshech kol davar asher yishach." You shall not deduct interest from loans to your brother, whether in money or food or anything else that can be deducted as interest. Linochri tashich, but you may deduct interest from loans to foreigners. So by adding one tiny clause, 2 Hebrew words, linochri tashich, but you may take interest from foreigners, Deuteronomy implicitly changes the meaning of brother, defining it more narrowly. Your brother, it seems to say, means one of your own, not a foreigner, not other, someone from your tribe. what we might call in Yiddish landsman, or a fellow Jew, or even more narrowly, a fellow Jew from the same part of the old country, maybe even the same shtetl. This same passage, by the way, gives rise to the concept of a Hebrew free loan society, a lending association by Jews for Jews, specifically developed by already established American Jews to help their landsmen obtain a foothold in the New World. And this passage also made it possible for medieval Jews to work as much reviled moneylenders in Christian Europe, a vocation considered dishonorable for good God-fearing Christians. With Deuteronomy's more narrow read, Jews could lend at interest to Christians so long as they did not charge interest to their fellow Jews. You can imagine how this played out in Christian European society, where anti-Semitism had already run rampant for centuries, in the worst cases, actively sponsored by the church and the state, which were often indistinguishable one from the other. Still, I am not convinced that what the Torah originally meant by brother referred only to one's own folk or tribe or landsman. The book of Leviticus, by not qualifying the term at all, by simply saying, let the needy live by your side as your brother, without any special treatment stipulated for fellow Jews, nor exceptions made for non-Jews, suggests to me that at its most noble and expansive, our Torah tradition sees every human being as our brother, our sister. Now, such a read derives as much from Levitical laws of lending as it does from the Torah's opening words, which declare that God created humankind b'tselem Elohim, in the divine image. Male and female, God created them. Every human being, of every color and creed, ethnicity, and nationality. Every human being, of every state and social station, every gender and sexual orientation, every ability and disability. Every human being of every size and shape, age and language, every human being might be my brother, my sister. Surely by beginning with this lofty declaration, the Torah wished to set out its overarching vision for humanity. Am I my brother's keeper? Cain's question is still alive, and each of us must answer with our actions. So how shall we respond to the manacled and the maimed, the marginalized and the murdered when we see their faces on TV? Do we see them and think other or brother, stranger or sister? Which impulse will we follow? Before you answer, let me share with you a Yom Kippur story from the Yerushalmi, the so-called Jerusalem Talmud, which was compiled in the Galilee around the same time that its more famous sibling, the Bavli or Babylonian Talmud, was being written in Babylonia. This is a story about a venerated teacher of Torah named Shimon ben Shetach, and it goes like this. Shimon ben Shetach was struggling in the cotton business. His student said, "Rabbi, let us buy you a donkey to ease your travels so that you won't have to work so hard." They went and bought a donkey from a Gentile, which happened to have a precious pearl tucked away in the saddlebag hanging from around its neck. They returned to Shimon gleefully, saying, "With this good luck, you'll never have to work again." When Shimon learned about the pearl, he asked his students whether the Gentile had known of it at the time of sale. When they said no, he ordered them to return the jewel. So far, so good. Here we have a master teacher of Torah living out Torah values. Shimon assesses a case of potential fraud here, that his students have taken something of value from another person without the seller's knowledge, and he orders the property returned. But listen to how his students respond. Well trained in the intricate study of Jewish texts, Shimon's disciples know a thing or two about how to argue with their rabbi. They quote another teaching right back at him, with an impressive pedigree of rabbis to back them up. They retort, "But did not Rav Huna Bivi Bar Gozlan teach in the name of Rav, and authorized by none other than the great Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, that even if we agree that outright stealing from a heathen is forbidden, nonetheless, appropriating his lost property is totally permitted. Now, Shimon's students are no dummies. They are also no saints. When they made the purchase of the donkey and found this precious jewel in its saddlebag, don't you think it occurred to them that keeping it was, well, not exactly kosher? So they come up with a way to rationalize their decision. They think to themselves, this Gentile who sold us his donkey, it's not as if he's our brother. He is other. What difference does it make if we profit from his loss, especially if he doesn't even realize what's happened? What's the harm? And not only that, do we not have a teaching from some of the most esteemed rabbis who ever lived that suggests that it's okay to appropriate lost property from another person so long as it's not a fellow Jew? Who is this heathen to us anyway? So they present this legal argument to their teacher, and Shimon ben Shetach loses his patience, exclaiming, "What? Who do you think I am, a barbarian? I would rather hear others say, 'Blessed be the God of the Jews,' than have all the money in the world." End of story. You see, Shimon understood that the issue at hand is ethical, not legal. Shimon cared not only about what was permitted, but also, and more importantly, what was right. Shimon wanted Jews and Judaism to be not so much smart or clever, but righteous. Now, I have promised you that I would talk about what's broken in my heart, what needs mending in our humanity, and we have arrived at the moment of truth. Because as I studied the story of Shimon and his disciples, I realized that no matter how much I wish that our religious tradition would declare unanimously, consistently, and unequivocally that the word brother always and forever means any other member of the human family, I arrive at a different conclusion, a more complicated conclusion, a conclusion that requires each of us to search our hearts, which is that Judaism, which rarely gives anything less than two opinions for any big question, offers two competing outlooks, two perspectives at odds with each other. On the one hand, the universal, to see ourselves first and foremost as part of all humankind, and on the other hand, the particular, to see ourselves first and foremost as part of a small and specific group of people, one with a unique history and destiny, different from everyone else. Come to think of it, we Jews need both outlooks, the universal and the particular, the global and the tribal. Without a tribal outlook, we miss the beauty and power of our specific religious tradition, our Torah, our ways of expressing ourselves, our language and culture, and holidays and foods and music, our calendar and our customs, our mores and our mitzvot. And without a global outlook, we miss the overarching function of Judaism, what the rabbis called litaken olam b'malchut Shaddai, to restore the world under the sovereignty of the divine, or tikkun olam for short. With only a tribal outlook, everyone else becomes other. Only my fellow Jews are brother. Or worse, we subdivide ourselves into smaller and smaller clans with pettier and pettier distinctions and definitions. Only my landsman. Only the landsman from my shtetl. Only the ones who affiliate the way I do, Reform or Conservative or Orthodox or Reconstructionist or Renewal. Only the ones who come to Shabbat services or Torah study or Freebirds events, or who have the same teacher as my kids do. Only the ones who support Israel the way I do, or who vote the way I do. They are my brothers. The others are just that, other. Keep this up, and we end up like Cain, wiping our hands of our brother's blood. But the fact remains that Judaism gives us both the choice and the textual justification for how we shall view every human being, either as brother or other, either as a member of the family or as part of the human family. It's easy for me, I think, easy for all of us, to look at Jacob Blake and see other. Somewhere along the way, our paths diverged. His ancestors came to America under very different circumstances from mine. Both of our great and great-great-grandparents were surely persecuted minorities, but our families' destinies in America took different roads. The fact of our shared surname is, at the end of the day, nothing more than a coincidence. My ancestors did not come to these shores with the name Blake, of course. In the old country, it was Blecher, Yiddish for tinsmith. When my paternal great-grandfather, Avram Blecher, emigrated from Russia at the turn of the 20th century, he arrived through Ellis Island. Believing that America was a country in which a Jew could openly be a Jew, he determined that he would in fact be a top Jew, a Kohen. His documentation was altered so that he assumed the surname Cohen, under which Abraham Cohen lived, married, and had children, of whom my grandfather Morris Cohen was one. Undeniably bright and ambitious, and having attained a high school diploma, my grandfather nonetheless could find nothing better than menial employment. He and two of his brothers, Harold and William, correctly deduced that the name Cohen was not an asset in the troubled years of World War II. And they had it changed back to the original Blecher with an important modification. They now shared a surname with a famous and decidedly non-Jewish English poet. Within weeks, Morris Cohen, rechristened Mo Blake, found employment at the Trenton Pipe and Nipple Company, a vital war industry supplying the Navy, and he soon became plant superintendent. But then again, as Rabbi Reeser taught us in his Rosh Hashanah remarks, American Jews seeking to assimilate in the post-war years into a white Christian milieu have always had an advantage over our black brothers and sisters. Like most American Jews of the post-war era, my grandparents, parents, and I have all benefited from being seen as white. My family had an opportunity to change their name. Jacob Blake and his family will never have the opportunity to change the color of their skin. So today I ask for us to reckon with the choice before us. How in this new year, in a world riven by division, will we regard our fellow human beings as other or brother, sister or stranger? I do not know if asking this question will mend the brokenness in our world, but I do think we can use this Yom Kippur to work on what's broken in our hearts. If the earth were your body, you would be able to feel the many areas where it is suffering, says Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh. Compassion begins with the awareness of suffering. Empathy comes from the hurt places in me that recognize the hurt places in you. My own broken heart will begin to heal when the world sees the bond between Blakes as deriving from the fundamental fact of our shared humanity and not the coincidence of our shared surnames. I began by saying that my brother and I could not be more different. I conclude by saying that we, brothers and sisters, each of us, all of us, could not be more the same. Jacob Blake deserves to be standing upright on his own 2 feet the same way I stand before you today. Each one of us deserves to fulfill our human potential as reflections of God, creatures made in the divine image. For the essential truth of existence is this, that there is only one thing, and we are all it. So on this morning of Yom Kippur, let us give thanks. First to our Jewish tradition, which teaches us the value in perspectives both particular and universal, both local and global. Let us give thanks as well for having reached another day of atonement, still alive, and perhaps a little wiser, a little more humane, and a whole lot more inspired to do God's work here on earth in the new year. And let us give thanks above all to the eternal, in whose unity every difference becomes part of the grand mosaic of life, in whose totality each one, each individual life, every nerve ending and every ocean, every beating heart and every pulsing star becomes part of the one. Blessed be the God of the Jews. Blessed be the God of the human family. Blessed be the God of creation. Amen.
My brother to his face. Go home, outsider. This town's gonna be your burying place.
Immediately following our morning worship, we invite you to stay tuned throughout the day. If you watch the closing credits reel of our broadcast, you'll be able to learn more about all the different services and events that will be shared with our community online throughout this Day of Atonement. As I continue to remind our community each and every year, remember that fasting is an important ritual, but it does not take precedence over your health, life, and safety. So if you're fasting, please be cautious, and please be very, very careful and safe. We wish you Gemar Chatima Tova. May you be inscribed for blessing and sealed in the book of life. Amen.
Amen.
Lamb, save